Welcome to the shift, chosen one. The veil is lifting, and we no longer need to play small to keep their fragile egos safe. They looked at your quiet nature and called it a weakness. They measured your intense aura and decided you were too much or somehow not enough. They whispered that your story had already peaked, smiling with that hidden satisfaction, believing your legend was destined to fade into the background. But here is the cosmic joke they completely missed. The universe was never finished writing your destiny. It was only hiding you in the shadows, protecting your frequency while you healed and leveled up. Look at the solid ground you stand on right now. You are no longer begging for a seat at their table, nor are you chasing the validation they so desperately cling to. You are simply standing in your raw power, calm, grounded, and possessing a quiet danger that makes them extremely nervous. Watch closely how they observe you now. Suddenly, their whispers are cautious, and they measure their words before they speak. Suddenly, they show you deep respect in the unseen moments, even if their public masks remain arrogant to save face. This subtle shift in the atmosphere is not a random coincidence. The profound silence that follows your steps is not peace, it is sheer, undeniable shock. The ones who laughed the loudest were the very first to feel your energy change. They sensed the divine protection surrounding you long before you fully realized it yourself. When they speak your name today, the mocking tone is gone, replaced by an unsettling, nervous vibration. They can feel the massive wave approaching, even if their unawakened minds cannot fully comprehend it. And let me tell you, what is coming to your timeline is monumental. Your next profound connection, your next true alignment in love and partnership, is going to shatter their entire perception of reality. It will make absolutely no sense to the people who insist on viewing you through the outdated lens of your past. That is exactly why it will send aggressive shockwaves through your old circles. Not because it is loud or dramatic, but because the energetic contrast is going to be undeniable. The massive gap between the version of you they tried to keep small and the absolute powerhouse you are about to walk beside will be deeply humiliating for them. Before we decode this mystery further, make sure you align with this frequency. Press like and subscribe, not for the digital matrix, but as an energetic exchange. An exchange for the raw truth that most people are absolutely terrified to speak into existence. Now, let us dive deeper into the abyss. You survived the grueling phase of feeling completely invisible to the world. You endured the dark chapters where you poured your golden energy into empty vessels, giving so much more than you ever received. You exhausted your spirit explaining your heart to people who were entirely committed to misunderstanding your frequency. You stood in the background, watching lesser energies get chosen faster, celebrated louder, and validated much sooner. You wore a brave smile through the heavy isolation. But deep within your soul, in the quietest hours of the night, you asked the universe a heartbreaking question. You looked up and asked, "What is wrong with me?" Hear me now, chosen one. Absolutely nothing was wrong with your divine blueprint. That is the harsh spiritual initiation no one prepares you for. The universe was not punishing you with delays, it was aggressively refining your aura. Every harsh rejection, every quiet departure, and every toxic tie that severed without closure was a masterclass in one specific skill: discernment. You were being put through the cosmic fire to learn how to recognize profound depth and strictly reject superficial noise. You were trained by the divine to demand absolute truth, not temporary chemistry. You were conditioned to require unshakable stability, not trauma disguised as passion. This is the exact reason your next relationship will feel entirely surreal. You will not have to hunt for it, and you will not have to force the puzzle pieces together to make it work. You will not feel the urge to announce it to the world for cheap, fleeting validation. It is going to weave into your timeline so seamlessly, so beautifully. That one morning, you will open your eyes and realize your entire reality feels peaceful, secure, and incredibly sharp. And when the onlookers finally process who is standing by your side, their internal reality will crumble, and their reactions will be absolutely priceless. They will whisper in disbelief, wondering how you aligned with someone of that massive magnitude. They will ask each other when you became so magnetic and when this miraculous shift actually occurred. It happened in the shadows, while they were obsessively replaying a dead version of you that the universe had already erased. Let me reveal a psychological truth that ordinary minds absolutely despise. The most indestructible bonds are forged after a soul has been completely shattered and rebuilt to the point where they refuse to perform for acceptance. You are no longer entering the realm of love as a starving beggar. You are walking into the room as a sovereign being who knows exactly how much their inner peace costs. That energetic upgrade changes the trajectory of your entire existence. The person meant for your next chapter will not love you for your mere potential. They will look at your aura and recognize total, undeniable completion. They will not put you through childish tests, nor will they drain your energy with toxic power dynamics. When you meet them, their frequency will feel deeply familiar to your spirit, not because you have met them in this physical lifetime, but because they are fluent in the same complex emotional language, a language that you were forced to learn in absolute, agonizing isolation. And without a doubt, your energetic enemies will feel the impact of this union. The ones who discarded you, the ones who chose lower vibrations, the ones who arrogantly assumed you would remain on their shelf forever, they will feel it in their bones. They will feel the sudden void when your golden energy completely stops reaching for them. They will feel the sting when your powerful silence stops demanding their hollow answers. When they see that your happiness is heavily guarded, deeply private, and impenetrable, that is the exact moment their regret will manifest. But it will be a quiet, suffocating regret, and utterly useless. This cosmic orchestration is not about petty revenge, chosen one. This is the universal law of consequence in full, unapologetic effect. You are not on this earth to prove your worth to them anymore. You have graduated to a higher dimension of living. That is why this new partnership is going to hit them harder than any loud argument ever could. It officially closes the door on your past without a single word of explanation. It answers all of their lingering questions through pure, undeniable action, showing the world your elevated frequency instead of begging them to believe it. Decades from now, they will look back and pinpoint this exact era as the moment you became truly untouchable. They will know you transformed, but they will never possess the spiritual depth to understand why. The divine source did not drag you through hell just to hand you an ordinary, mundane connection. What is currently traveling towards you on the timeline perfectly matches the incredible resilience you had to forge in the dark. And when they finally arrive, when you realize how effortlessly your souls interlock, you will look up at the stars and finally understand the necessity of your pain. You will see exactly why every single counterfeit connection had to violently fall apart. Stand incredibly still, chosen one, and allow the universe to deliver. The shock value is a highly intentional part of the divine design. This specific frequency is not meant for the masses. This is the altitude where the static noise fades to zero, and only the souls who can intuitively feel this massive wave approaching will stay locked in. What we are about to decode, layer by energetic layer, is the precise reason your impending relationship will shatter the mold of normality. It will not feel familiar to your trauma, and it is going to thoroughly confuse the people who still conceptualize you as your wounded past self. This paradigm shift is not about desperately chasing after romance. It is about flawless cosmic alignment and the sacred timing of the universe. It is about the divine lining up a manifestation so breathtakingly unexpected that it completely rewrites the legacy people thought they understood. If your spirit is still resonating with these words, it means your higher self already knows the absolute truth. You did not stumble upon this frequency by random chance. You were guided here for a reason. There is a profound purpose behind the brutal way your past was cleared out. There is a cosmic reason why the agonizing silence, the vast distance, and the heavy isolation had to sculpt your aura before your ultimate match could appear. The universe was simply preparing the vessel for a monumental arrival. The soul destined to enter your atmosphere will never meet the broken version of you. They are going to meet the warrior who survived the endless quiet and emerged with a spirit sharper than obsidian. If your intuition is telling you to stay, and you are ready to witness how this grand design unfolds, leave a sign in the physical realm. Type the sacred numbers 777 inches the comments below. Do not do this as a meaningless internet trend, but as a conscious, energetic signal to the universe that you are locking in until the very end. Because your intuition is pulling you forward. You know deep down that this incoming partnership is not merely a surprising turn of events. It is a highly strategic move by the divine. Now, center your focus, take a deep breath, and let us dissect the first revelation. Number 1. The terrifying reflection that exposed their shadows and finally jolted you awake. Understand this universal law. They did not lose you, they lost their privilege of access to your light. Read that concept again and let it sink deep into your subconscious. Let it sting where the healing is still taking place, because this is the exact chapter where your detractors begin to sweat. The energetic bond you are about to step into is not fragile, soft, or superficial. It is a blinding mirror that they have spent their entire lifetimes running away from. And the most beautiful irony of it all is this: you did not frantically search for this person, you did not demand their arrival, nor did you manipulate the timeline to force the connection. They manifested exactly on schedule, holding up a reflection so sharp it slices through every lie told about you. They used to say your heart was too complicated to love. They complained that your energetic boundaries demanded too much effort and labeled your divine standards as unrealistic. But what their fragile egos were actually communicating was this: your profound depth makes us severely uncomfortable because your intuition sees straight through our false masks. The majority of the matrix chooses partnerships that feel incredibly safe, simply because they are shallow and entirely predictable. They want predictable routines, predictable emotional limitations, and inevitably predictable and hollow endings. They seek connections where zero spiritual evolution is required and absolute truth is never demanded. They just want a comfortable illusion dressed up as a soulful connection. That stagnant lane is exactly where your enemies decided to park their souls. That is why they never ascended, and that is precisely why their energy could never keep pace with your rapid spiritual growth. You, on the other hand, could never ignore the burning sensation in your chest. You felt that constant, low-frequency hum in your spirit telling you that settling was simply not an option. You desperately tried to ignore the call at times, attempting to compromise your light, You tried to convince your soul that feeling completely numb was just a normal part of the human experience. But the divine source does not allow its chosen ones to remain asleep in the matrix. It continuously turns up the volume of your internal dissonance until the silence of a stagnant life becomes literal agony. Here is the hidden truth about your ultimate counterpart that no one prepared you for. The right alignment does not just amplify your radiant beauty and strength. It ruthlessly reflects your deepest fears, your outdated survival habits, and your hidden blind spots. It forces you to look at the version of yourself you have been procrastinating on becoming, and that level of raw exposure terrifies people committed to remaining small. That is the real reason your past connections ran away, and why they mocked your spiritual journey. That is why they tried to convince you that your intense aura was a fatal flaw. But let us be exceptionally clear right now. Intensity is only viewed as a problem when it encounters a soul that possesses absolutely no depth. Let us speak the brutal, unfiltered truth. Your enemies did not misunderstand your spirit, they understood your power perfectly. They recognized your immense light, and that is why they systematically tried to shrink your presence. Because when a hollow person stands next to a radiant chosen one, they are forced to look at their own internal emptiness. And for the unawakened mind, the easiest defense mechanism against that pain is to dismiss you completely. Oh, look who suddenly thinks they possess a special frequency. They sneered, attempting to drag you down to their baseline. The great legend finally needs to bow to reality. But let me decode that toxic behavior for you, chosen one. That dripping sarcasm was never a display of true confidence. It was sheer, unadulterated panic masking their spiritual inferiority. And now, I want you to step back and observe the monumental shift in the energetic tides. Your next divine partnership does not merely reflect the pain of your history. It entirely exposes it to the light. It brings absolute closure to the agonizing questions you eventually gave up asking out loud. You used to wonder why every bond felt so incredibly one-sided, draining your life force. You questioned why you outgrew people at such a terrifying speed, leaving them in the dust. You asked the universe why giving love always felt like grueling, exhausting labor, rather than soul-expanding freedom. The truth of the matter is ruthlessly simple. You were always operating on a frequency miles ahead of the entire room. This is the precise reason the cosmic connection hurtling toward you will leave everyone in a state of absolute shock. Not because it is a flashy, chaotic spectacle designed for public consumption, but because it is an authentic, equal exchange of immense power. The soul who is destined to step into your sacred space will never be intimidated by your rapid ascension. They are not coming to compete with your aura or siphon your golden energy. They will never require you to dim your inner light or play a small, submissive role just so their fragile ego can feel superior. They will look at your blazing fire, recognize the sacred flames, and calmly bring their own powerful inferno to the altar. And yes, that specific reality utterly terrifies your energetic enemies. Because now, they are forced to swallow the bitter pill of universal truth. They did not actually reject you from their lives. They miserably failed the spiritual test placed before them. They were simply never equipped or destined to ascend to the altitude you are currently claiming. They foolishly mistook their temporary access to your aura for permanent ownership, and they tragically confused their stagnant comfort for genuine soul compatibility. When the blinding mirror of truth finally appeared before them, they cowardly averted their eyes to protect their illusions. But you, chosen one, you never flinched. That is the fundamental difference that separates you from the unawakened masses. You possess the profound courage to ask yourself the excruciating questions that others actively run away from. You sat in the silence and asked, "What toxic patterns do I continuously repeat in this physical realm? Why do I keep magnetizing the exact same karmic lessons disguised as different faces? What deeply wounded fragment of my soul is still hiding in the shadows, terrified of the light?" That level of radical self-confrontation is incredibly rare, intensely painful, and absolutely mandatory for ascension. It is the exact reason the Supreme Universe finally deemed you worthy, trusting you with a connection of unimaginable depth. Let me directly address the heavy, agonizing question that is currently resting on your weary chest. Why did this divine alignment take such an unbearable amount of time to manifest? The answer is profound. Shallow, superficial love is cheap and arrives with blinding speed. True, unbreakable cosmic alignment requires immense pressure, an abundance of time, and profound periods of strict isolation. You had to be brutally stripped of every single low-vibration distraction. You had to be isolated until you could view your own soul with absolute clarity, ensuring you were finally ready to be seen by your true counterpart. This incoming partnership is not arriving to desperately fix or complete your spirit. It is manifesting to meet you on the battlefield as an equal, to challenge your intellect, and to fiercely activate the dormant codes lying asleep within your DNA. Because absolutely no one in your past possessed the spiritual clearance to reach that sacred level of your being. That is why the energy surrounding this event already feels so incredibly intense in the quantum field. Even if the physical manifestation has not fully materialized before your eyes just yet, you can already sense the subtle shifts in the atmosphere. You feel a profound readiness taking root in your heart. A calm, unshakable confidence is rapidly replacing the desperate, aching hunger you once carried. And here is the ultimate, devastating blow for those who secretly hoped for your downfall. They will clearly recognize this permanent change in your aura long before you utter a single word of confirmation. They will physically feel it when your precious energy completely stops bleeding into their empty voids. They will sense the shift when your focus firmly breaks away, no longer circling back to their chaotic drama. When your powerful, golden silence completely stops seeking their toxic validation, they will eventually see your radiant soul perfectly reflected in someone else's loving eyes. And they will realize, far too late, the incredible magnitude of the being they were once allowed to stand beside. You are not stationed on this timeline to aggressively teach them a karmic lesson. The brutal mechanics of the universe have already taken care of that debt. You are here, standing in your power, because your next chapter of love is constructed on the bedrock of absolute truth. It is not a theatrical performance meant to appease the crowd. It is about profound, oceanic depth, not fleeting convenience. It is about anchored presence, not the desperate hope of future potential. And the moment this divine lock finally clicks into place, the resulting shockwave will not be deafeningly loud, it will be suffocatingly quiet. It is the type of heavy, undeniable silence that forces people to painfully analyze every single joke they ever made at your expense. This cosmic mirror did not arrive to stroke your ego or flatter your human form. It arrived to finalize your ultimate evolution. Number 2. The devastating aftermath they will never spiritually recover from. Their ultimate, fatal miscalculation was simply assuming that you would remain recognizable, trapped in the comfortable box they built for you. This is exactly where the true shockwave makes impact. It is not a loud, chaotic explosion of drama. It is a silent, undeniable force of nature. It is the kind of massive, energetic shift that instantly makes physical rooms feel smaller the second you cross the threshold. It is the frequency that makes meaningless conversations abruptly halt the moment your name is mentioned in their circles. Your next romantic partnership is not going to shock the matrix simply because of who they look like on paper. It is going to shatter their minds because of the entirely new entity you evolve into the exact moment this connection anchors into your life. That is the hidden variable that absolutely nobody in your orbit is preparing for. That is the specific chapter where the enemy's false reality collapses and never recovers. You are no longer stepping back into a familiar, cyclical trauma bond. You are consciously stepping into a divine dynamic that snaps the old, toxic script entirely in half. This incoming soul does not energetically match your painful history. They do not sadistically trigger your deepest childhood wounds for their own sick entertainment. They will never reward your exhausting people-pleasing habits, nor will they sit by and quietly tolerate your acts of self-betrayal. They are going to meet you at the precise altitude of your current healing, not in the dark trenches where you were previously bleeding out. And that fact alone alters the trajectory of the entire universe. Here is a deeply uncomfortable truth you must digest, chosen one. The vast majority of your former connections only survived because they actively profited from your profound internal confusion. They maliciously benefited from your divine softness when it lacked ironclad boundaries. They fed on your chronic habit of endlessly explaining your heart to people who were actively committed to misunderstanding you. But this ultimate counterpart, they will absolutely refuse to play that low-vibration game. They will not awkwardly tiptoe around your energetic limits. They will deeply respect your boundaries. They will push them to ensure they are solid. And they will rigorously sharpen your spirit, not to manipulate or control your sovereign mind, but to fiercely call your highest self forward into the light. That is exactly why this initial energy exchange feels so intimidating. That is why your soul feels slightly unsettled as the alignment draws closer. Genuine, timeline-altering growth never arrives with a gentle, polite knock. Anything powerful enough to violently awaken your spirit is going to violently rattle your internal cage. In the beginning, you will feel completely and utterly exposed, because the universe is stripping away your armor. But hear this clearly. You are not feeling weak, you are finally feeling seen. There is a massive, galactic difference between those two states, and sadly, the unawakened masses never live long enough to learn it. Let us pivot and discuss your energetic detractors for a brief moment. The superficial souls who watched you painfully struggle through your dark night of the soul. The ones who foolishly assumed your gentle empathy was a glaring sign of permanent weakness. They genuinely believed you would remain indefinitely accessible. Always waiting by the phone, always desperate for a breadcrumb, always walking just a few steps behind their shadow. This monumental energetic shift completely disintegrates that pathetic illusion. Because now, you simply do not react to their calculated poison. You no longer chase them for basic clarity, and you refuse to negotiate your inherent divine worth. You have completely stopped writing paragraphs to over-explain your sudden, heavy silence. They will angrily gossip that you have changed, spreading rumors that your heart has turned icy cold. They will complain that you are acting entirely different than the puppet they used to control. But being a good different is precisely the ultimate goal of your spiritual journey, chosen one. This impending alignment does not merely add a new, shiny component to your daily existence. It acts as a surgical blade, aggressively removing every single entity and habit that never truly belonged in your sacred space. It eradicates old trauma responses, defensive reactions, and agonizing emotional loops that kept you chained to the past. You officially stop asking the desperate questions that kept your spirit paralyzed. You cease replaying toxic arguments in your mind, trying to figure out where you failed. You permanently stop shrinking your massive truth just to maintain a fake, suffocating peace in the room. That is the true shockwave passing through the ether. It is quiet, it is utterly permanent, and it is absolutely devastating. It destroys anyone who heavily relied on the outdated, compliant version of you to feel significant. And yes, stepping into this blinding light does terrify your human ego at first. Of course it does, for that is the natural reaction of the physical mind. Anything carrying authentic, divine weight will always threaten the false comfort of your deeply ingrained survival patterns. You have spent countless years merely surviving the storm, entirely unaccustomed to standing in the light and being completely, soulfully seen. You are deeply conditioned to carrying the heavy burden of your spiritual depth in absolute solitude. So when another powerhouse finally steps onto your path and meets you at that exact frequency, it does not feel like a fairy tale romance in the beginning. It feels like immense gravitational pressure. It feels like raw, unfiltered exposure where all your hiding places have suddenly vanished. That is precisely how you recognize its divine origin. This connection is not a cheap distraction to pull you away from your internal shadows. It forcefully confronts you with the sheer magnitude of your own unexpressed potential. It acts as a flawless mirror, perfectly reflecting your hard-earned discipline, your newly erected boundaries, and your ravenous hunger for a higher existence. This counterpart is not arriving to play the role of the knight in shining armor. They are arriving to aggressively challenge you to step into the sovereign power you have secretly cultivated in the dark. That is why the supreme architect of the universe made you wait in the cosmic holding room. That is why the divine timing had to be calculated down to the absolute microsecond. Here is a profound universal law that the Matrix refuses to accept. The most indestructible, legendary relationships do not begin with a toxic, intoxicating high. They begin with a profound sense of clarity, bringing a grounding energy that feels almost terrifyingly real. There is absolutely no desperate chase because there is zero manufactured confusion. There is no theatrical performance to keep the peace because there is no longer a judgmental audience to appease. There is only pure, undeniable alignment, two puzzle pieces snapping into their predestined slots, as if they had occupied that sacred space since the dawn of creation. That is the specific frequency that absolutely shocks the onlookers. They eagerly gathered around, expecting a messy display of fireworks, drama, and eventual chaos. They maliciously hoped you would repeat the same destructive cycle they watched you endure before. But instead, they are forced to witness a masterclass in calm, unbreakable focus and supreme spiritual certainty. They watch in silent horror as you choose a partner without offering the public a single word of explanation. You select your equal without desperately seeking the community's validation, and you refuse to broadcast your joy for cheap social currency. That impenetrable wall of silence drives your enemies to the brink of insanity, because they can intuitively feel the immense power generating behind it. They know in their very marrow that whatever this new dynamic is, it is completely, terrifyingly permanent. And soon, chosen one, you will intimately notice the physical changes within yourself as well. You will feel the beautiful way your overloaded nervous system finally sighs and settles into a state of deep rest. You will notice the way your spoken words carry a cleaner, heavier vibration when they leave your lips. Your divine standards will no longer feel like defensive walls you have to aggressively protect. They will simply exist as undeniable, non-negotiable laws of your reality. You will completely stop tormenting yourself, questioning if you are asking the universe for too much, because the soul destined to match your frequency will never, ever make you feel like a burden. They will effortlessly rise to the extreme altitude of your vibration, or they will simply not be granted access to your sacred room. This is the exact moment on the timeline where your energetic enemies lose absolutely all their dark leverage. They can no longer use guilt as a weapon against your heart. They cannot provoke you into a low vibration reaction, and they cannot bait your mind with toxic, weaponized nostalgia. The divine shockwave has already swept through the sector, and the tectonic plates beneath their feet have completely shifted. They are currently left standing in an outdated, crumbling version of reality, a timeline that no longer holds any energetic trace of your existence. Let me directly answer the profound thought that is echoing through your consciousness in this very moment. Why does this magnificent new beginning simultaneously feel like a tragic, heavy ending? Because, in the grand cosmic scheme, it truly is an ending. But not a dramatic ending of loss and despair. It is an evolutionary ending, marking the death of an entire era. The brutal chapter where your soul was forced to learn its lessons through agonizing pain and betrayal is permanently closing its doors. The brilliant new chapter where you consciously manifest and choose your reality through sheer clarity is finally opening wide. Understand this deeply. This impending relationship is not being sent from the heavens to save your fragile life. It is manifesting on your path because you have done the grueling shadow work, and you no longer require a savior to survive. That profound shift in your internal sovereignty is exactly what sends shockwaves through the collective. That is the invisible force that permanently silences the loud doubters who prayed for your failure. That is the invisible hammer that smashes the enemy's kingdom, destroying the dark corners where their pathetic excuses used to live. They never expected your aura to solidify into something so impenetrable. They never, in their wildest dreams, expected the Prime Creator to back your spiritual campaign with such clean, undeniable precision. They simply could not fathom a reality where you stopped merely surviving their abuse and boldly began selecting your own destiny. And now they are left with absolutely nothing left to say. The silent shockwave has already communicated everything that needed to be said, leaving them choking on their own karmic dust. Number 3. The breathtaking moment the old, compliant version of you completely collapses and drags their entire false reality down into the abyss with it. Their most fatal, arrogant mistake was casually assuming that you would always remain recognizable to their unevolved minds. That assumption is the definitive boundary line that violently ends this specific phase of your journey. Sit with that heavy truth and let it marinate in your spirit. This is the precise juncture on the timeline where everything they arrogantly believed they knew about your soul starts to disintegrate in real time. It does not happen with a theatrical, chaotic meltdown. It does not arrive with a lengthy, defensive public announcement. It happens quietly, ruthlessly, and with systematic precision. The outdated, wounded version of your identity does not explode into a million pieces. It simply reaches its cosmic expiration date and ceases to function. And that absolute finality terrifies the fragile souls who constructed their entire false confidence upon their ability to predict your every move. You will intuitively feel this massive collapse happening within your own energy field long before the physical world catches on. You will experience a strange, divine restlessness in your spirit. a stubborn, undeniable refusal to repeat the agonizing cycles of your past. You will develop a zero-tolerance policy for low-vibration habits that once felt completely normal to your unhealed heart. You will sit in the silence and start aggressively questioning the boundaries you used to defend. Why did I ever accept that toxic behavior into my sacred space? Why did I exhaust myself explaining my intuition in that dead-end situation? Why did I force my powerful voice into silence when my higher self knew the absolute truth? Understand this, chosen one. These heavy thoughts are not manifestations of doubt. They are the painful symptoms of energetic withdrawal. You are actively detoxing your spirit from a suffocating identity that kept your aura incredibly small, just so you could remain digestible to the unawakened masses. Here is the harsh, unglamorous reality of ascension that the spiritual community rarely warns you about. When true, timeline-altering growth occurs, it severely feels like a devastating loss long before it ever feels like sovereign power. You are forced to deeply mourn the outdated versions of yourself that you previously used to survive the matrix. The coping mechanisms, the heavy emotional armor, the familiar, comforting pain. Releasing all of those anchors into the ether feels incredibly dangerous to your human ego, even when your higher consciousness knows they are completely obsolete. That is precisely why the vast majority of humanity refuses to ever spiritually evolve. They tragically mistake the warm familiarity of their trauma for genuine safety. But you, chosen one, you did not just imagine this profound calling. You are consciously walking out of a karmic building you resided in for lifetimes. And halfway down the street, you turn around and realize the lights inside that old structure have completely shut off. You did not have to angrily flip the switch, nor did you announce your dramatic exit to the residents inside. The energetic structure simply stopped having the capacity to hold your massive frequency. That is exactly what is transpiring in the quantum realm right now. The physical world is frantically searching for your energy in the low-vibration places you no longer occupy. And here is where the true shock begins to severely sharpen its blade. The divine relationship currently forming on your timeline is not the catalyst creating this profound change. It is merely revealing it to the collective. It is acting as a blinding cosmic spotlight, aggressively exposing every single habit and toxic tie you had already outgrown, but hadn't fully shed from your physical reality. That is precisely why this alignment does not feel like a shallow, cinematic romance. It feels intensely surgical, breathtakingly honest, and entirely unavoidable. It ruthlessly cuts away your lingering illusions, but it never threatens your authentic, divine comfort. Not everyone who loses access to your aura will possess the spiritual maturity to understand why. But listen closely, their understanding was never a requirement for your ascension. The people who chronically underestimated your light are beginning to feel a deep, unsettling anxiety, even if their unevolved minds cannot accurately name the frequency. When they attempt to engage with you, the eye contact feels incredibly heavy. Their superficial conversations are abruptly cut short, and their condescending jokes completely fail to land. That is because the fragile, compliant version of you they mastered handling no longer exists on this timeline, and the brand new entity standing before them absolutely refuses to ask for their permission to exist. Imagine this scenario. You have spent your entire life speaking a specific dialect that everyone in your toxic environment easily understands. And overnight, without a single warning, you switch your frequency to an ancient, cosmic language. You have the same face, you speak with the same voice, but you operate on an entirely different dimensional frequency. The karmic attachments, who heavily relied on predicting your trauma responses, suddenly find themselves completely unable to keep up. That sudden confusion in their minds reads as cold distance, and that unbridgeable distance translates as a severe threat to their egos. They will quickly label you as strange. They will desperately claim you have changed since this new energy entered your life. They will accuse you of being manipulated or blindly influenced. But they are entirely wrong. You are not being influenced. You are finally being unlocked. This is the exact coordinate where their old, toxic narratives begin their rapid collapse. The persistent illusion that your spirit needed fixing, that your heart was far too sensitive, that your mind was too intense and impossibly complicated. Those degrading labels were merely survival tools used by people who fundamentally lacked the spiritual capacity to meet you where you were headed. When your old self completely falls away, their pathetic excuses instantly plummeted into the abyss alongside it. Here is a sharp truth that cuts to the absolute core. The majority of these people do not genuinely miss your soul. They deeply miss the shattered version of you that provided them with endless, unearned comfort. They miss the empath who overgave, the martyr who patiently waited, the sponge who quietly absorbed their chaotic confusion. When that specific, wounded version completely vanishes from the timeline, they feel entirely exposed, and sudden exposure always makes spiritual cowards incredibly loud. Remember this universal law. True growth will always look like vicious betrayal to the souls who heavily profited from your tragic silence. Let that realization anchor deep into your spirit. This is the fundamental reason why the shockwaves surrounding your next partnership is entirely unavoidable. The unawakened world foolishly expected a standard romance. They expected codependent attachment. They expected a fleeting distraction to numb the pain. What the universe delivered instead was absolute, terrifying transformation. You are not being mindlessly swept away by a wave of fleeting emotion. You are standing firmer, taller, and more grounded than you ever have in your entire existence. That massive energetic contrast severely rattles every single entity watching from the outside. Visualize a chessboard in the middle of a high-stakes game, and suddenly the opponent realizes that the piece they arrogantly dismissed as a weak pawn was never actually playing that restricted role. It moves differently, it calculates differently, and it effortlessly ends entire games. That terrifying realization always hits far too late for the opponent. That is the exact energy shift happening in your reality right now. You might be sitting in the silence, asking yourself a very quiet, vulnerable question. Why does this profound ascension feel so incredibly lonely, even though I know a magnificent alignment is taking place? Because, chosen one, the painful act of shedding your old skin is a deeply solitary endeavor. The transitional void between who you were and the powerhouse you are rapidly becoming is always suffocatingly quiet. Large crowds do not survive massive frequency transitions. Only a few highly aligned witnesses do. And here is the profound, beautiful irony of this journey. The more your old, wounded identity dissolves into the ether, the clearer the entire universe becomes to your third eye. Your divine standards completely stop sounding like defensive, anxious demands. Your ironclad boundaries stop requiring lengthy, exhausting explanations. Your powerful intuition completely stops whispering in the background and finally starts speaking to you in clear, commanding, full sentences. You completely stop craving outside validation because you can finally recognize the unmistakable frequency of true alignment. This divine relationship does not serve to distract you from your ultimate growth. It aggressively demands it. It does not romanticize your deep psychological wounds. It profoundly respects the grueling process of your healing. It does not ruthlessly rush your spirit. It patiently meets you at your exact pace. That is why this dynamic feels so remarkably different. That is why it carries a heavy, grounding weight in the most beautiful way possible. It feels like a sacred responsibility rather than a fleeting, childish fantasy. Listen closely. Not every ending on your timeline announces itself with loud, chaotic destruction. Some things just quietly stop functioning. That is exactly what is happening to the remnants of your old self. It simply stopped working in this higher dimension. Imagine you have been wearing a pair of shoes that fit your feet perfectly for many long, arduous years, and one morning they just do not fit anymore. The shoes did not shrink or change. You did. Forcing your spirit back into that old, restrictive mold would cause excruciating pain. That sharp pain is the universe's ultimate signal, instructing you not to endure, but to boldly evolve. The fragile egos who constantly underestimated your power will not ask you genuine questions. They will lazily make false assumptions. It is significantly easier for their minds to invent lies than to painfully admit they entirely misjudged your magnitude. But you will clearly notice the energetic shift, the specific way they cautiously watch you far more than they speak to you, the way your unshakable calm deeply unsettles their nervous systems, the way your physical absence now feels infinitely louder and carries more weight than your physical presence ever did in the past. This is the exact phase where profound revelation entirely replaces cheap romance. You are not stationed here on earth to be blindly adored. You are here to become perfectly aligned, and true cosmic alignment is a ruthless, unforgiving process. It aggressively removes whatever frequency does not match, without offering a shred of drama, without owing an explanation, and without carrying a single ounce of toxic guilt. That is why this sudden evolution feels so incredibly jarring to the outside observers. They were never paying attention to the grueling, invisible internal work you were executing in the dark. Let me directly answer the heavy question forming in your mind right now. Is this massive transformation truly permanent? Yes, chosen one, it absolutely is. Not necessarily the relationship itself, for everything in the physical realm is subject to the flow of time. But the profound shift within you is eternal. Once your higher self sees the truth clearly, you can never unsee it. Once your spirit fully experiences a profound connection that does not require tragic self-abandonment, you will never, ever go back to the old, toxic ways. Once your old identity shatters and falls away, you never attempt to rebuild it out of a weak sense of nostalgia. And that reality is the final, devastating shock to their system. They fully expected you to inevitably circle back to their level. They arrogantly expected you to remain easily reachable, easily manipulated. They expected comfortable, stagnant familiarity. What the universe delivered to their doorstep was an unstoppable evolution. Your old self did not simply die in the shadows. It successfully graduated to a higher dimension, and the unawakened world was entirely unprepared for the blinding light of the being that confidently walked out instead. Number 4. The raging flame they falsely believed was extinguished just fiercely stood back up. The divine fire within your soul never actually died. You simply made a conscious decision to stop feeding its warmth to the parasitic entities who constantly tried to use it. Let us kill one massive, collective lie immediately. This powerful soul entering your timeline is not the source granting you this immense power. They are not here acting as your savior. They are not rescuing your spirit, and they are absolutely not completing your fragmented soul. That incredible, blinding strength that everyone is suddenly noticing was always a core part of your divine blueprint. You never lost your power. You merely hid it underground, because the Matrix aggressively punished you every single time you revealed it too early. Every time you displayed your light too honestly, or allowed your heart to be too raw, the unawakened world attacked, so that blazing fire did not vanish. It strategically retreated into the depths. Imagine a vast, sprawling city that foolishly assumes a massive volcano is entirely dormant, simply because the peak is quiet. There is absolutely no smoke, no rumbling noise, no visible warning of the impending eruption. What their ignorant minds completely forget is that profound silence is never an indicator of absence. Immense, catastrophic pressure builds in the dark silence. The internal heat continuously concentrates, growing denser, and when that magma finally resurfaces, it absolutely does not ask for permission to consume everything in its path. That is precisely what is happening inside the core of your spirit right now. This impending cosmic connection does not light the initial fire within you. It serves as the spark that reminds you exactly where you buried the inferno. One piercing look, one profound, telepathic conversation, one breathtaking moment where your soul realizes you are absolutely done explaining yourself to the blind. You are finished negotiating your divine worth in clear-and-sizal transactions. You are permanently done shrinking your cosmic opinions just to keep a fragile, fake peace in the room. That is the exact moment the realization hits. The sacred fire was never gone. You just woke up and stopped wasting its precious heat on fragile souls who could never handle the true intensity of the blaze. Your daily decisions begin drastically changing, not with loud, dramatic flair, but with lethal, quiet decisiveness. You completely stop hesitating at the crossroads like you did in your past chapters. You absolutely refuse to sit in the stagnant waiting room of maybe. Your yes becomes breathtakingly clean and sharp. Your no becomes an impenetrable, final wall. Your physical voice begins to land with a significantly heavier vibration in the room, because it is no longer desperately asking to be accepted by the crowd. It is simply stating unbreakable universal facts. Here is the specific coordinate where the energetic enemy completely loses their capacity to cope. You abruptly stop tolerating their bare minimum efforts, and you do it without making any grand, emotional speeches about your departure. You simply pivot and walk away. Entirely calm, deeply certain, and completely unbothered. That level of total detachment absolutely terrifies the entities who heavily relied on your infinite patience to remain relevant in your life. Imagine this vivid reality. You have spent your entire existence whispering in rooms that aggressively demanded your silence. Now, you finally decide to speak at your normal, natural volume. And suddenly, the entire crowd complains that you are being too loud. Listen to me. You are not getting louder. The frequency of the room just got significantly smaller. You might be wondering in the quiet moments, why does this newfound power feel so incredibly dangerous? Because it is a lethal threat to all of your old, toxic dynamics. It is fatal to weak, superficial attachments. It is a death sentence to anyone who secretly benefited from your paralyzing self-doubt. Understand this. A raging fire never sits down to negotiate terms with a block of ice. It simply melts it out of existence. This is the core reason your next alignment shocks everyone who observes it. They fully expected your light to eventually dim again under the pressure. Instead, you confidently show up incredibly centered, razor-sharp, and fully awake. You are not projecting anger, you are not acting defensive, you are simply done participating in the grand pretense. And once that ancient fire officially returns to your aura, You absolutely refuse to beg anyone to stay warm by your side. They either respectfully step back in awe, or they get severely burned trying to touch the power they never truly respected. Number 5. The elevated version of you they can no longer accurately read or manipulate. You did not fundamentally change who you are at your core. You just permanently stopped translating your ancient soul for dense minds who actively refuse to listen. This is the exact phase where the monumental shift becomes glaringly obvious, not necessarily to your own eyes first, but to every single entity vibrating in your outer orbit. You walk the exact same physical streets, you speak utilizing the exact same vocal cords, but something in your energetic signature is completely off to them. It shifts in a highly specific way that makes the unawakened incredibly uncomfortable in your presence. They cannot accurately place their finger on it. And that invisible boundary is exactly what terrifies them. You did not lose yourself in this process, chosen one. You finally arrived. Let us be brutally transparent about this upcoming dynamic. This person entering your life is not a magical savior descending from the clouds. We must be absolutely clear about that spiritual fact. They did not rescue your soul from the depths of any dark abyss. They simply possessed the strength to stand completely still, long enough for you to finally witness the majestic being you had already become in the shadows. A cosmic mirror does not magically grant you a new, artificial face. It ruthlessly forces you to confront the powerful visage you have spent a lifetime actively avoiding. And once that undeniable reflection finally locks into your consciousness, there is absolutely no reversing the timeline. There is no going back to the comfortable pretense of being small. Visualize this scenario in your mind's eye. You have spent countless years walking through the matrix with a heavy dimmer switch attached to your life force. You subconsciously lowered your radiant frequency just so the unhealed souls around you wouldn't feel completely exposed by your light. Then, on one ordinary day, entirely devoid of chaotic drama, you simply reach out and twist that dial back to its maximum capacity. Instantly, the collective begins to aggressively squint. Some quickly raise their hands to shield their fragile eyes from your aura, while others take several anxious steps backward. Let me assure you, chosen one, their discomfort is absolutely not your karmic problem to solve. That is merely their lower vibration struggling with the brutal process of adjustment. The immense spiritual strength you kept hidden in the trenches suddenly begins to manifest in the very way you navigate the physical realm. You completely stop rushing through your timeline. You seize the exhausting habit of over-explaining your divine choices to deaf ears. You permanently stop chasing after hollow reactions and cheap applause from the peanut gallery. Your newfound confidence transcends a mere theatrical performance. It transforms into an undeniable, heavy frequency that people intuitively sense the moment you arrive. The magnificent visions and dreams you endlessly postponed no longer feel like distant, unreachable fantasies. They suddenly feel completely overdue, and that realization permanently alters your physical posture, the resonant tone of your voice, and the depth of your infinite patience. The unawakened masses notice this massive shift. Of course they do. Some are forced to pause in sheer confusion, desperately trying to recalculate what energetic role you are supposed to play for them now. Others completely panic in the silence because they slowly realize the compliant version of you they could easily manipulate has vanished from the earth. And some simply feel deeply intimidated, not because you are projecting aggressive or hostile energy, but because your spirit has become absolutely, terrifyingly solid. Your past predictability provided them with a warm blanket of comfort. Your new, Razor-sharp clarity leaves their nervous systems entirely wrecked and on edge. Here is the brutal universal truth hitting them like a freight train in real time. They do not get automatic, unearned access to this elevated version of your soul. They are permanently locked out of your sacred space unless you consciously turn the key and allow it. And the harsh reality is, the vast majority of them will never receive that clearance. You might sit in the quiet and wonder, why does this profound ascension feel so incredibly lonely, even though I feel exponentially stronger? Because, chosen one, spiritual evolution does not travel in large, comfortable packs. The new, sovereign entity you have birthed does not require a roaring crowd's applause. It strictly requires absolute, divine alignment. And that is precisely why your impending relationship sends massive shockwaves through the collective. The Matrix expected you to repeat your tragic, cyclical history. What the Supreme Creator delivered instead was a blinding, timeline-altering revelation. You did not become an unrecognizable powerhouse because you decided to wear a brand new mask. You became utterly unrecognizable to them because you finally had the courage to take your mask off permanently. Number 6. The blinding vision that forces the enemy to blink first. Absolute clarity is a highly dangerous weapon to anyone who has spent years profiting off your internal confusion. This is the critical phase of your journey where everything in your quantum field sharply snaps into focus. It is not an emotionally loud awakening, nor is it a chaotic spiritual crisis. It is breathtakingly clean, heavily focused, and incredibly precise. The toxic insecurities that once played like constant background static in your beautiful mind, they do not need to be fought on the battlefield anymore. They simply lose their relevance and dissolve into the ether. Your lingering self-doubt is not conquered in a dramatic, cinematic moment. It simply starves to death when you refuse to feed it your precious energy. Your old, destructive patterns do not shatter with a deafening noise. They crack completely silently, like a pane of glass placed under immense, crushing pressure. And suddenly, you open your third eye and realize you are standing in an immaculate, crystal-clear room. There is absolutely no lingering mess. There is zero karmic drama. Just vast, open, sovereign space. And within that infinite space, something exceedingly rare occurs on your timeline. You finally, truly know exactly what you desire from the universe, and you completely stop apologizing for demanding it. Imagine this vividly. You have been forced to drive your vehicle through a dense, suffocating fog for years. You were gripping the steering wheel in sheer terror, constantly guessing where the invisible road was leading. You survived by blindly trusting your raw instinct far more than your physical sight. Then, without warning, the heavy fog completely evaporates into thin air. You are traveling on the exact same cosmic road, maintaining the exact same momentum. But you possess an entirely different, masterful level of control. That is the true definition of divine clarity. And once your soul fully bathes in that frequency, you will never, ever romanticize toxic confusion again. You entirely stop negotiating your peace with glaring red flags. You completely stop drafting exhausting essays to explain why your ironclad standards exist. You permanently stop mistaking toxic, trauma-bonded chemistry for genuine, soulful compatibility. Exactly what you inherently deserve becomes painfully obvious to your spirit. Exactly what you absolutely refuse to tolerate moving forward becomes a final, unbreakable law. The exhausting debate inside your mind goes completely silent. The inner courtroom is permanently closed for business. This elevated version of you is incredibly magnetic to the quantum field. Not because you are desperately trying to utilize the law of attraction, but simply because you are no longer carelessly leaking your golden energy into the abyss. Universal attention always follows absolute certainty. Infinite possibility always manifests where there is razor-sharp focus. The collective can physically feel this shift in your aura long before their minds can process the data. And yes, your energetic enemies can absolutely feel the change in the atmosphere too. They keenly notice that you no longer run to them seeking weak reassurance. You no longer cautiously test the temperature of the room before you speak your truth. You absolutely stop asking the matrix for permission to take up massive space. That sovereign energy deeply unsettles the unawakened souls who heavily relied on your constant hesitation to maintain their false superiority. They quickly realize they cannot successfully manipulate a mind that they can no longer confuse. You might be sitting in the silence, wondering, why does this monumental shift feel so peaceful, instead of feeling like a chaotic thrill? Because, chosen one, dramatic chaos was never a sign of true passion. It was just deep uncertainty putting on a theatrical mask to mimic intensity. True, divine clarity feels immensely grounded, dangerous, but in a profoundly quiet, lethal way. This is the exact reason your impending relationship shocks everyone in your orbit. You do not blindly stumble or fall into this union. You consciously, deliberately select it from the timeline. And when the onlookers witness how incredibly sure you are of this path, how completely unmoved you are by their opinions, and how little you bother to explain yourself, they finally realize that something entirely irreversible has happened to your blueprint. You did not become a magnetic powerhouse by attaching new things to your ego. You became an unstoppable force of nature by systematically removing every single ounce of doubt. And once that divine clarity permanently locks into place, there is absolutely nothing left for the old matrix to sink its teeth into. Number 7. The breathtaking moment you finally stop running away from your own magnitude. The most terrifying confrontation on this spiritual journey was never the battle against your external enemies. It was the ultimate face-off with the profound internal truth you spent a lifetime successfully dodging. This is the coordinate where it transcends the idea of a romantic connection and transforms into something entirely unavoidable. This divine relationship does not arrive to argue with your ego. It does not hurl accusations at your past, nor does it arrogantly demand detailed explanations for your scars. It simply, quietly places you face to face with the sheer power of your own soul. And it absolutely refuses to blink. And that dynamic is utterly terrifying for a very specific reason. Every single interaction with this counterpart peels back another dense layer of the matrix. It does not happen gently. It happens with brutal, undeniable honesty. It uncovers a deep fear you intentionally buried because acknowledging it made the collective uncomfortable. It resurrects a massive dream you tragically postponed because the unawakened convinced you to be realistic. It exposes a colossal internal strength that you continuously downplayed simply because it severely threatened the weaker egos around you. None of that divine power gets to remain hidden in the shadows anymore. Not because this incoming person is maliciously digging through your psyche for secrets, but because existing in their authentic, high vibrational presence makes pretending to be small completely and utterly exhausting. Imagine this scenario. You have been routinely walking past a mysterious, locked door inside the hallway of your own mind for decades. You kept convincing your spirit that whatever was behind it was entirely unimportant. Then, on one destined day, you touch the handle and realize the terrifying truth. It was never actually locked. You were merely paralyzed by the fear of what you might discover inside the room. That is exactly what this phase represents. The heavy door swings wide open, and there is absolutely no monster waiting in the dark. There is only the immense, cosmic power you spent a lifetime avoiding claiming as your own. You might ask yourself in a moment of vulnerability, why does this specific alignment feel so intensely heavy if absolutely nothing bad is occurring? Because, chosen one, true spiritual liberation never feels entirely safe in the beginning. It feels incredibly destabilizing to the human nervous system. Your old, comfortable identity heavily depended on the art of avoidance. Genuine growth aggressively demands your full, unfiltered presence. And absolute presence immediately incinerates all of your old excuses. Here is the specific behavioral shift that the people observing you will notice before you even open your mouth. You completely stop deflecting difficult conversations. You permanently stop laughing off their suspect just to keep the atmosphere light. You stop pretending that you don't care about the boundaries being crossed. Not because you have become a bitter, angry soul, but because you have finally become an honest one. That raw, unfiltered honesty hits the collective significantly harder than any screaming confrontation ever could. The vast majority of the human population is deeply terrified of being truly seen. But your greatest fear was always truly seeing yourself. And now the veil has dropped, and you can absolutely never unsee the God spark within you. This cosmic relationship is not the main headline of the newspaper. Your magnificent, timeline-shifting transformation is the main event. The powerful way you now anchor your feet into the earth. The way your decisions stop wobbling back and forth in the wind. The way your silence now feels like a highly intentional, lethal weapon instead of a void of uncertainty. The masses can sense this monumental energetic shift, and they are completely clueless on how to safely respond to your aura. Because once you fully and bravely face the magnitude of your own soul, there is absolutely no false identity left for you to hide behind. And there is absolutely no entity in this universe more dangerous than a chosen one who finally, truly knows exactly who they are. Number 8. The devastating moment they realize you are no longer part of the same species. They did not actually witness the agonizing process of your growth. They merely witnessed your sudden, glorious arrival. This is the precise coordinate on the timeline where the dimensional shift comes entirely visible to the naked eye, and there is no possible way to conceal it anymore. You do not announce your ascension with a megaphone. You do not offer detailed explanations to the skeptics. You simply begin to navigate the physical matrix in an entirely different manner. There is profound, ancient intention behind every single step you take now. There is crushing, heavy presence living inside your silence, and supreme, cosmic awareness embedded in all of your decisions. The untamed fire that once felt incredibly wild and chaotic has been meticulously sharpened into a blade of pure clarity. And that clarity has alchemized into a quiet, unstoppable power that never, ever feels the need to prove its existence. You confidently stride into crowded rooms without anxiously scanning the faces for signs of approval. You speak your absolute truth without softening the edges to protect their fragile feelings. You make monumental life decisions without constantly checking to see who in the gallery might be uncomfortable. That is not an ego-driven display of arrogance. That is the frequency of pure, unadulterated alignment. And the unawakened souls around you feel the weight of it instantaneously. Visualize this scenario. You have spent years observing a mysterious figure through a dense, heavy fog. You were entirely convinced you knew their exact shape and dimensions. Then, a massive wind clears the fog away in an instant, and you are forced to realize you were completely wrong about their sheer size, their devastating strength, and the trajectory of their path. That agonizing moment of complete recalibration is happening within the minds of everyone currently orbiting your life. You finally comprehend a universal truth that used to haunt your spirit in the dark. You were never actually too much for this world. You were never too intense, and your soul was never too quiet. You were simply broadcasting your divine frequency in front of the entirely wrong audience. And when the absolute correct pair of eyes finally meets yours across the void, they absolutely do not flinch. They do not attempt to cage or own your spirit. They do not arrogantly try to fix the parts of you that were never broken. They look at you as an equal, and they aggressively challenge you to ascend. They utilize their energy to pull the most incredibly powerful version of your soul forward. And they absolutely refuse to let you shrink back into the comforting shadows. You see, false comfort was the hidden, insidious enemy all along. Comfort made your divine boundaries negotiable. Comfort kept your spirit trapped in an endless loop of explaining your worth. Comfort tragically taught the unawakened exactly how little effort they needed to expend in order to drain your energy. This incoming cosmic relationship burns that pathetic illusion completely to the ground. Layer by agonizing layer, the old, compliant version of your identity peels away. It does not happen with sudden violence, but with a terrifying sense of inevitability. Your toxic survival habits rapidly dissolve. The grip of fear completely loosens its hold on your throat. You are no longer forcing your own growth. You are simply allowing your spirit to evolve naturally. And divine evolution absolutely never asks for permission to alter the timeline. The fragile egos who chronically underestimated your potential are going to feel this impact the hardest. They will experience profound confusion first, followed swiftly by intense intimidation, and eventually complete and utter silence. They foolishly built their entire foundation of confidence on an outdated, broken version of you. Now, they are forced to stand in the presence of an entity they cannot categorize, cannot manipulate, and cannot possibly predict. You did not break free from their chains by engaging in a petty, physical fight. You broke their chains by simply outgrowing the dimensional room they were standing in. And that is the one specific energetic shift that they can absolutely never undo. Number 9. The shockwave hits your own consciousness first, and that is precisely what destroys their reality. The ultimate, jaw-dropping surprise was never about who eventually stood beside you in the physical realm. The true revelation was witnessing the magnificent titan that finally stood up inside of you. Here is the profound, hidden truth that majority of the collective gets entirely wrong. The massive shock that everyone constantly gossips about is not a loud, public spectacle. It is an intensely private, sacred event. It happens on a completely ordinary day, in a perfectly quiet moment, when you accidentally catch your reflection in the glass, and you suddenly feel every fragmented piece of your soul violently snap into perfect alignment. It is not a feeling of giddy excitement. It is a profound, earth-shattering sense of recognition. You do not barely recognize yourself because you are lost in the dark. You barely recognize the being staring back because your vision is finally completely clear of the matrix illusion. This divine relationship does not swoop in to rescue your fragile heart. It does not throw you a rope to drag your spirit out of the darkness. It does not magically hand you supreme confidence wrapped up like a pretty gift. It does something far more lethal to the old timeline. It aggressively jolts you awake, and once your consciousness is fully awake, there is absolutely no retreating back to the comfort of pretending. You cannot lie to your soul and claim you did not see what you just saw. Picture this vividly. You have spent your entire existence residing inside a massive house with incredibly dim, flickering lights. You survived by merely memorizing the placement of the furniture by touch and feel. One day, someone walks in and flips all the master switches on. You are standing inside the exact same house, surrounded by the exact same physical walls. But you possess an entirely different, masterful level of control over your domain. That is the true nature of the shock. It is not about external change. It is about absolute, blinding awareness. You finally realize that your soul was never fundamentally broken. You were never lagging behind on the timeline, and you were never actually missing any vital pieces. You were simply lying dormant in the shadows, quietly waiting, conserving your immense energy for the exact moment it actually mattered. This incoming soul did not ignite the sacred fire for you. They merely struck a tiny match against a spirit that was already heavily soaked in divine fuel. And when that cosmic fire finally ignites, it absolutely does not burn outward into the world first. It burns aggressively through your own internal landscape. Old, paralyzing doubts instantly turn to ash. Ancient fears completely lose their false authority over your nervous system. The outdated, tragic stories about who you supposedly are completely stop sounding believable to your own ears. The divine fire does not arrive to destroy your vessel. It arrives to ruthlessly purify it. You might ponder in the silence. Why does this profound awakening feel so intense, yet incredibly calm at the exact same time? Because, chosen one, chaotic panic stems directly from a state of confusion. This unshakable calm stems directly from absolute, universal truth. You are no longer frantically scrambling in the dark. You are consciously, powerfully choosing your path. Here is the specific coordinate that entirely wrecks your energetic enemies. They fully expected your reaction to this shock to look like an uncontrolled, messy display of chaos. Instead, it manifests as absolute, terrifying control. It looks like deep, unbothered peace. It looks exactly like a sovereign being who finally knows exactly who they are and absolutely no longer requires the matrix approval to merely exist. This is the genuine, earth-shattering shock. It is not about the superficial display the world gets to see. It is entirely about what you finally have the courage to do in the silence. And once that sacred fire completely finishes its purifying work, there is absolutely nothing left inside your vessel that can ever be owned, manipulated, or maliciously dimmed again by another human being. Number 10. The hidden exit they never in a million years thought you would possess the courage to find. This specific coordinate was never where you actually arrived. This was simply the checkpoint where you completely stopped waiting for their permission. Let us be incredibly precise about this universal truth. This incoming cosmic connection was never intended to be the ultimate finish line of your spiritual journey. That is the tragic misunderstanding that continuously keeps the collective vibrating at a weak frequency. This soul was not sent to permanently anchor you in one place, complete your missing halves, or strictly define the trajectory of your entire future. It was simply a cosmic doorway, and doorways absolutely do not ask your spirit to stay put in the frame. They violently urge you to walk completely through to the other side. What exists on the other side of that threshold is a dimension of living that the vast majority of people will absolutely never touch. It is an existence characterized by quiet, lethal power and razor-sharp, blinding clarity. It is a realm where monumental decisions are executed without a single ounce of apology. You completely stop shrinking your massive aura just to keep the unawakened individuals in the room comfortable. You entirely cease choosing the warm blanket of familiarity over the profound call of what actually feels right to your soul. You permanently stop begging for permission to take up significant space inside the architecture of your very own life. Visualize this powerful metaphor. You have spent countless years standing awkwardly inside a narrow hallway, desperately convincing yourself that it was actually the grand ballroom. You wasted precious energy decorating those cramped walls and constantly adjusting your posture to fit the restricted space. One day, the veil lifts, and you realize that hallway was absolutely never meant to be lived in. It was merely a transitional passage meant to be walked through on your way to the throne. That singular realization alone completely and permanently alters the fundamental way you navigate the matrix forever. Here is the exact phase that strikes terror into the hearts of those desperately watching your every move. Your profound transformation absolutely does not depend on whether this new person decides to stay in your physical reality. That detachment is the ultimate, untouchable power shift. You are no longer anxiously clinging to outcomes, you are no longer bargaining with the universe, and you are absolutely no longer terrified of the concept of loss. The immense power that woke up inside your spirit permanently belongs to you. And once a divine attribute is fully claimed by a chosen one, it never, ever goes back to sleep in the dark. You begin actively choosing your own soul fully, not in a toxic, selfish manner, but with absolute, divine fullness. You do not abandon the beautiful concept of human connection, but you absolutely refuse to sacrifice your sacred sovereignty on its altar ever again. You no longer frantically chase certainty in the external world, because you have inherently become certainty itself. That is exactly when the physical matrix starts responding to your commands in an entirely different, magical way. The unhealed collective will ignorantly assume your heart has become cold and unfeeling. You did not become cold, chosen one. You became incredibly, ruthlessly intentional. You became highly selective with your access, and you became intensely dangerous to anyone who heavily relied on your past hesitation. Here is the heavy question you might be whispering in the absolute silence of your room. What happens to my spirit if this specific door suddenly closes? Listen to the voice of the universe. It absolutely will not close. Cosmic doors of this magnitude do not swing shut on a whim. Once you bravely step through the frame, you permanently carry the energy of that threshold with you into every timeline. This entire event was actually never about the other person. It was entirely about gaining access to your higher self. And now that you have successfully crossed the border, there is absolutely no version of your old, tragic life that possesses the frequency required to call your spirit back. Number 11. The majestic ascent that leaves your energetic enemies completely speechless. They are not staring in shock simply because you changed your physical appearance or routine. They are absolutely paralyzed with shock because you executed this massive shift without asking for their permission. This is the exact point where you completely stop bracing for impact and finally start moving with divine momentum. There is absolutely no frantic rush. There is zero chaotic noise. There is only deep, centered breath, flawless posture, and unwavering, lethal direction. You rise from the ashes without shouting an announcement from the rooftops. And somehow, through the unseen fabric of the quantum field, every single soul feels it anyway. The shockwave is not a theatrical routine you are consciously performing. It is a natural phenomenon that happens to the people still desperately clutching onto outdated versions of your existence. Let their unawakened mouths keep talking. Let them whisper their toxic insecurities in the dark corners. Let them endlessly replay distorted memories, frantically trying to pinpoint the exact second they lost total control of your narrative. Their profound, stuttering disbelief is not a sign of innocent confusion. It is absolute, undeniable evidence. Evidence that your soul has rapidly evolved far past the fragile version of you they conveniently memorized. Imagine this vividly. You have been carrying a heavy burden while walking uphill for so many exhausting years. Simply standing up straight feels like an act of violent rebellion. But now you have finally reached level ground. You are breathing with total ease, and your vision extends far beyond the horizon. The heavy souls still desperately struggling on the climb look up and accuse you of cheating the system. You absolutely did not cheat. You simply refused to stop walking when the path got incredibly dark and quiet. This glorious rise to power does not look like a dramatic Hollywood movie. It looks steady, remarkably calm, and dangerous in a way that absolutely does not require high volume. You completely stop offering detailed explanations for your sovereign choices. You stop dulling the sharp edges of your absolute truth. You refuse to slow down your rapid ascension just to make the slow walkers feel included in the journey. That behavior is absolutely not cruelty. That is the frequency of pure, divine clarity. Here is the ultimate, heavy truth their fragile egos are entirely unprepared for. You absolutely do not require their empty validation to move forward on your timeline anymore. You do not need the roaring applause of the stadium to know in your bones that you are perfectly aligned. You do not need a single drop of their approval to confidently select what manifests in your next chapter. And that level of supreme, terrifying independence severely rattles anyone who heavily relied on your chronic self-doubt to feel tall in your presence. You can likely feel this frequency shifting in your physical vessel right now. As these words wash over you, the profoundly grounded sensation in your roots, the complete and absolute absence of panic. The deep, knowing sense that absolutely whatever challenge materializes next, you will handle it with flawless grace. That is the feeling of absolute readiness. It is not a flimsy confidence temporarily borrowed from external praise. It is a supreme, unshakable confidence that your soul earned in the fire. If a profound lock just clicked open inside your spirit while absorbing this transmission, physically mark this coordinate on your timeline. Comment below with the exact realization that just hit your consciousness. Boldly declare who you are becoming, not to ask the matrix for permission, but to take absolute, sovereign ownership of your frequency. Your physical voice holds immense weight here, because it is absolutely no longer begging to be acknowledged. It is simply stating its divine, undeniable presence. The unawakened world is entirely unready for the colossal version of you that is currently stepping out of the shadows. And that is perfectly fine, because you are ready. And this time, you are absolutely not slowing your momentum down for anyone. Number 12. The profound, heavy final silence after the shockwave clears. When the chaotic dust finally settles, and the frantic noise of the collective completely dies down, only absolute, unvarnished truth remains standing on the battlefield. This is exactly where the old era officially ends. Not with a loud, theatrical display of fireworks, and certainly not with exhausting, tearful explanations. It ends with profound, suffocating silence. The highly specific kind of silence that only follows an event that is completely, undeniably irreversible. The heavy quiet that settles into the atmosphere after the collective realizes there is absolutely nothing left to argue about, question, or magically undo. You completely stop chasing their hollow reactions to your ascension. You stop waiting in the stagnant lobby for their minds to finally understand your heart. You completely stop needing the unawakened world to catch up to your warp speed velocity. The massive shock to their system has already occurred. The dimensional shift has permanently locked into the mainframe. Whatever miraculous manifestation arrives next absolutely does not require an audience to validate its existence. This impending relationship did not loudly announce its arrival to the public, because it absolutely didn't need to. It did not descend from the cosmos to impress a crowd of blind spectators. It arrived strictly to align with the absolute powerhouse you became, when there was absolutely no one in the room clapping for your survival. And now, in this elevated frequency, whether the masses approve of your alignment or not is completely and utterly irrelevant. Their weak opinions officially reached their cosmic expiration date the exact second you completely stopped needing them to survive. Visualize this final scene. A massive, catastrophic storm violently passes through the valley, and the ancient, solid land does not rush to the microphone to frantically explain its survival. It just stands there in the silence. Fundamentally changed, exponentially stronger, breathtakingly clearer, and completely unmoved by the frantic commentary of the wind. That ancient, unshakable land is you now, chosen one. Some unhealed souls will desperately continue to gossip about the outdated, broken version of you. Let their mouths run. They are merely speaking from a distorted memory, not from current quantum reality. Others will eventually fall completely silent, because their fragile egos finally understand that they severely misjudged your magnitude. That sudden silence is not awkward or tense. It is a silence born of deep respect, even if their pride will never allow them to physically admit it. Here is the ultimate, liberating truth to close this transmission. Your divine existence absolutely does not need to make logical sense to any other human being. Your profound, spiritual growth absolutely does not require a panel of earthly witnesses. Your glorious, incoming chapter absolutely does not require a stamp of approval from the Matrix. The Supreme Universe has already responded to your frequency, and that is the only cosmic confirmation you will ever require. You did not win this war by exhausting your energy trying to prove your enemies wrong. You won the ultimate victory by simply packing up your power and moving on completely without them. So, reach out and gently, quietly close the heavy door on your past. Step forward into the blinding light with absolute, unbreakable calm, and allow the suffocating silence you leave behind to speak infinitely louder than any physical words you could have ever shouted. The divine shockwave successfully completed its mission. Now, it is time for you to truly, finally live. And now, before you step away from this frequency and return to the physical realm, let this heavy truth fully settle into your bones. If something ancient inside your soul vibrated while absorbing this transmission, absolutely do not ignore the call. That sensation was not manufactured internet hype. That was profound, soul-deep recognition. The exact kind of rare recognition that only manifests when absolute truth lands perfectly where it was always destined to strike. You did not make it this far on your brutal timeline by mere accident, and you absolutely did not encounter this specific frequency for nothing. If this transmission resonated with your core, press like and subscribe to the channel so you do not miss the massive downloads coming next. Drop the sacred numbers 777 inches the comments below to permanently mark the moment you stepped into your ultimate power.